Hi, I'm Michael Santos, and it is now just about 4 o'clock on what day is today? Thursday, February the 15th. And I'm very happy to see anybody and respond to questions. I see that Lynn is on, and I hope that you have a question. If you do, please feel free to unmute yourself so I could respond. Do you know how to do that, Lynn? I hope that you're able to do that.
All right, I think I'm unmuted. Hi,
You
Michael.
are unmuted. You're unmuted. Do you have some questions today? Hello, Fluid Exotics.
I'm not sure if I have a question right now. I'm very interested in what you have to say. I'm just learning. I'm coming from another project right now, so my mind isn't really focused on this just yet. So I'm
I got
mostly
it.
just
I
going to
got it.
listen.
Well, I just tell you a little bit. Have I ever spoken to you before?
Yes, I am a Jan 6er with a
Yeah, I
friend.
remember. Yeah, that's right. I remember speaking to you on the last live webinar. We were kind of having some challenges with uh, getting our technology set, but I know that today we're on so that people can come on and communicate. And the purpose of these webinars really is for anybody who has a question. I want to respond and hopefully help them make better decisions going forward. I see that we have a fellow by the name of Fluid Exotics that's in the chat, and I will ask if he or she has a question. And I see that Brian just came on, and I added him into the machine. Hi, Brian. But anybody who has questions, that's really what we're here for today. I really like to help people make better decisions as they're facing the crisis of a federal sentence. Brian, did you have a question today?
Trying to get more into personal narratives, and trying to find something about how to write them a little bit better. I started one. I had one of the consultants look at it, and he said not to use it and to talk more about.
Well, let's just talk about it right now. I could do it like live. I've done so many of these that it's pretty simple for me to do. Do you want to try that?
Sure.
Okay. Fluid Exotics, just feel free to pop into the machine. I see that you're asking about 42 months. How much time will you spend in prison and what type of prison will you go to? That's a bigger question. It's going to depend on a few questions, me asking you a few questions, which I'll do right after I give Brian a little brief tutorial on how to write a sentencing narrative. Okay. So Brian, this is what I'm thinking. Are you going to plead guilty or are you going to trial?
I pled guilty due to getting my wife dismissed.
Okay. So if you're pleading guilty, the thing you've got to really be thinking about is the judge and all the stakeholders that are going to be seeing you in the future. Many people have a tendency to want to look at their lives from their own perspective rather than the perspective. Hello, Helen. You are now on our community. I'm just responding to another person's question first. You want to be thinking about the judge and the prosecutor and the probation officer and people in the Bureau of Prisons, because the statement that you make is going to become part of a permanent record, and it's going to be your best opportunity to self-advocate and put yourself in a position for the judge to see you. Have you watched those interviews I've done with federal judges?
I have with Barnett.
Pardon me?
I have with Barnett.
No, not with Barnett. One is with Judge Bennett and one with Judge Boo. Do you know where to find those?
Yeah, Bennett. I'm sorry, that was the one I was talking about with Bennett.
I would recommend that you watch both of them because I've interviewed more than 20 federal judges. Those two agreed to have the courage to come on the website and allow me to interview them and talk about them. And for those who don't know where to find it, I will share my screen and respond to everybody's question as we get through this. But I'm going to continue talking to Brian and kind of giving him some suggestions on what to do. But I would recommend that anybody who's facing a sentence just go up here to Prison Professors and go to this section right there that says resources, and where you want to go is the subject matter experts. And anybody going into this system should really take the time to watch these interviews that I've done with the former chief of probation, former director of the Bureau of Prisons, and these two federal judges. And what they would hear if you went to these interviews is that all of the judges will tell you that they know what your attorney is going to say. They know what your prosecutor is going to say. What they need to hear is they need to hear from you, Brian. They need to know who you are and what you've learned from this experience. So, for example, what kind of case do you have?
Conspiracy for wire fraud.
Conspiracy for wire fraud. And what kind of educational background do you have?
I'm the engineer, the RF engineer, computer engineer.
So you're an engineer. And are you able to, how much money was involved in this case?
Just over 600,000.
And are you able to repay any of that 600,000?
No, it was all spent on the building and the build.
So there's no money left over to pay. Is that right?
Correct. It all went to contractors and to purchase things for the building.
Okay. And I'm just trying to get a few other things. Is there, in your case, will the pre-sentence investigation report indicate that you were trying to live high on the hog, or was this a business deal that went bad?
It was a business deal that went bad due to COVID coming at the time it did.
Was there an intention to defraud, or will the government allege that there was an intention to defraud, or did markets turn against you?
Of course they do, but the market turned against me. They closed the borders in Canada. We were the first location as people crossed the border into Alaska. And,
and how many people worked on your team, Brian?
22.
22. And you were the CEO?
I was the manager.
You were the manager, but you were the one that made decisions. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Here's how I would frame this narrative, just based on what you told me. I would start off in the very beginning. The first thing that I would do is express remorse. Too many people, when they're writing narratives, they try to litigate the case and tell about the reasons why, it's not their fault. You've got to make sure that no part of your narrative provides that message. Okay? Because what you've got to anticipate is the prosecutor standing up and saying, Your Honor, the only reason Brian's saying he's sorry is because he got caught. And you've got to obliterate that possibility of that message carrying through. And the way you do that is you start off the letter by saying something along these lines. Your Honor, I'm incredibly humiliated and embarrassed and sorry that I am in this position right now. I made some really horrific decisions during a very difficult time in my life and in my career. There's no excuse for what I have done. And I hope that you do not take anything that I am writing here as an attempt to excuse my misconduct. But that said, I would like to tell you a little bit about what I have learned from this process, how I got here, how I identify with the victims of this case, and what I am doing to make things right. And I'm going to start off by giving you some background. And then that's going to take you, I would elaborate on that. I would embellish that a little bit more with remorse, but maybe make that about 300 to 400 words. So if you're using a word processor, kind of count on that opening section of 300 to 400 words. And then I would get to the next section. And in that section, I would talk about your family background. I would talk about my grandparents and what kind of influence they had on me, my parents, what kind of influence they had on me. I would talk about where I grew up and what aspirations I had when I wanted to go through high school and how I became an engineer. I would talk about my first job and my career trajectory. I would talk about my family. If I have a wife and child, I would talk about that. And then I would talk about how I got influenced in this position. And I would, so in that middle section where I'm giving my background, I would not try to be too short. I would really make sure that the judge gets to know me and identifies like this common humanity. Because right now, he's only seeing you as United States of America versus your name. And you want to change that perspective. You want him to see you as somebody who grew up and has family and wants to be a good citizen. And then you want to transition into the remorse or the crime. And you want to explain the crime. And you want to say it was a very difficult time in my life. I had 22 employees for whom I felt responsible, but I lacked the courage to let them know I didn't have the capacity to carry this through. And in that lapse of judgment, perhaps induced by alcoholism or whatever it is, substance. I think you said you had a substance abuse challenge. Whatever that was, I made the bad decision to take the easy way out, not thinking about the harm that I was causing to others. I know that the government authorized those funds for a specific.
Can I stop there for a second?
Yeah.
That actually wasn't a bad decision. I never made a bad decision. I just ran into COVID or as the building started up, and
yeah, what you're doing right now, in my view, and you could discount it for all you want. I think what you're doing right now is explaining, and you only want to focus on remorse. You're the bad guy, Brian. You got to try to get out of this seat of saying it's really not my fault.
I agree. I agree it's my fault, but the aspect of not being able to do anything to try to figure a different way for the business to make money. I tried everything from internet to things in between. We're really remote, and I completely lost every hope, and I'm losing my dream. And I've lost money before in the past. This is not my first company I started. I took 2 companies public, and I lost $900,000.
None of this is going to be helpful to you, Brian. None of it. In my view, if you could throw it away, you're going to have to use your own discretion. But the things that you're telling me right now are not going to put you in the position for the lowest possible sentence. And you've got to be thinking right now, what is success? Do you want the result of the lowest possible sentence, or do you want to help the judge understand why you shouldn't be here? Because they're two very different things.
I agree. I'm just trying to. I know what
you
you're
don't
saying.
got to convince me. I don't think you should be going to prison at all. That's irrelevant. Okay, I'm not interested in any of that because I'm not a big fan of the prison system and locking people in prisons when they have a place to live and a job. That's not my mission. As somebody who served a long time and interacted a lot on advocacy, my only mission is to help you understand how to help yourself. And if you go in there and trying to say, oh, I've done 2 companies, I'm experienced, I've done millions of dollars, right? Great. Because here's what the prosecutor will say. And yet that's what you've got to anticipate. You're not trying to convince me. I don't think you should be going to jail anyway. Okay. I think you should get this should be a civil matter. I don't know. But it's not me that you're trying to convince. It is somebody who sees you very differently than you see yourself. And if you try to sell yourself, I think you should expect to serve a longer sentence than if you pursue a mitigation strategy.
I know what you're saying. I'm just trying to figure out because, I accept responsibility for what's there. I'm going to say that.
There's a lot of people that will say that, Brian. But the judge, you have to remember, the judge is exceptionally skilled at looking at somebody and assessing whether there is genuine remorse or if there is somebody who's saying, I accept remorse, but it's not really my fault. There's a big difference. And you want to be different from everybody else that goes before that courtroom. Those are only my thoughts. You might have a different perspective. I'm just giving you my thoughts.
Yeah, and the one thing that I don't know how it's going to go is because this judge, in the 37 years he's been on the bench, has only seen 2 white-collar criminal cases.
I don't believe that. I don't know where you got that information, but I don't believe
from
that.
my attorney. I
don't believe your attorney. Sorry. That's ridiculous. But that's fine. That might be what he said to you, and I have no doubt that he believes it, but I don't believe it.
It's Fairbanks, Alaska. It's really small.
What?
It's Fairbanks, Alaska. Very small.
It may be, but you don't be on the bench for 37 years and only see 2 white-collar cases. And
white-collar conspiracy wire. It's this type of case.
That's the easiest case there is wire fraud. Just see wire fraud, mail fraud are the easiest case for the government to bring. And if there's only so many federal judges, and there's no way this guy only saw 2 cases in 37 years.
Yeah,
but that's really not that relevant anyway. What's relevant is, are you doing everything within your power to prepare for the best possible outcome? And
one other thing that the attorney brought up was we live in a small community. There's only 1,300 people here. One of them's a reporter who recorded me saying a snippet that I only took the plea to because they offered it to me to dismiss my wife, and he put that out on KUAC. It's a PBS news article, and trying to say that that was against his efforts to mitigate my sentence because the guy used that in a news article in the last week. I don't know how somebody recording me in Alaska, they don't have to tell somebody you're being recorded. They can just record you. But he used that snippet of that was what they offered me, and I took it and wrote an entire news article about it and said that the assistant DA assistant USAA was pissed off that interview came out. I don't know how to mitigate that.
Well, you don't do it by what you were telling me tonight. That's for sure. That's not going to help you. You simply mitigate it by being honest and saying, every human being makes bad decisions. And you've got to start by not thinking about how you see yourself, but how the judge and the prosecutor are going to see you. And that is not the easiest thing in the world to do. But if you ask yourself, if you're ruthlessly honest and you write it out and you look at what you're doing, I mean, I was trying to dictate it to you and you stopped me. Oh, that's not really true. Let me tell you why I'm a special guy. You've already got that sold on me. You're a special guy. That's not relevant to this purpose. You've got to define success as saying the only thing I want is the lowest possible sentence. That's it. Okay, you're not selling me. Okay, I believe you. I've already believed no white collar guy that that has a job and a place to live. I don't think prison's the right place for them. So it's irrelevant. But you're still trying to convince yourself. And that's very hard to do. When you just say, oh, I'm already in a bad position, then you should anticipate what that prosecutor is going to say. Your Honor, the only reason that Brian's saying this is because he got caught. His real feelings are right here. How are you going to overcome that? You've got to be ruthlessly honest with yourself and say, my job is not to undermine that guy. My job is to get out as soon as I possibly can. And I've got to think about the stakeholders, and that's it. And then hopefully you get a lower sentence. Anyway, those are my thoughts. You're always welcome to come on and disagree with me. I will do my best to help. And I want to respond now to Fluid Exotics, who asked me about a 42-month sentence. How much time will I spend? If you can't come on, Fluid, on the live stream and ask and have an interaction, a dialogue with me, then just tell me on the text 2 things I need to know. What kind of case is it? And are you going to qualify for RDAP? Those are 2 important cases. When I say what kind of case is it, specifically, I want to know, do you have a gun or do you have any allegations of violence? And if you do not, that will influence what I'm going to say. And I also need to know if you're going to participate in RDAP. And then I could answer you better. But I could also show you a place to go. So if you come here to this website right here, there's a ton of free information here that I really would recommend you to use. One of the things that you want to use is up here, this calculator. And you could just go into this calculator and plug in, answer the questions. And once you go through the questions, it'll do a calculation for you. And that calculation will give you like a projection. And that projection should help you get a better understanding. But after you answer the questions, I will be able to, the questions again are, any allegations of violence or a weapon, number 1. Number 2, are you participating in RDAP? Okay, there's a few other people here that are on the live stream. I see my friend Eric is there. Hello, Eric. Mark or Helen or Nikita or Rachel, if either of you have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and I will respond while I'm waiting for Fluid Exotics. And there's Scotty.
I just wanted to say thank you guys. I've been tuning in a lot more lately. I had sentencing yesterday,
How did it go, Rachel? Is this Rachel?
This is me. Yes, it's Rachel.
How did it go, Rachel?
The guidelines were 24 to 30. I feel like with the work put in and all of y'all's help, I was sentenced to 18 months.
What?
So,
24
yes.
to 30, and you got 18 months. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. I'm super excited. I spent the day, working with Patty and Brad a little bit, and just now my next step is getting ready and preparatory and, the next chapter. And
So what are you anticipating? Like, what have you learned that 18 months generally means as far as time away from your family?
Time away, I'm going to anticipate about 9 months, give or take. For me,
I think 9 months would be like an exceptional outcome if you got that.
Yes.
Just so you know, that would
Yes.
be like everything went perfectly right. And it can happen. Obviously, it just happened to you at sentencing. But, I would, if it were me, I would be using like a grade. And I would say like a 9 month, 10 months would be an A. 9 to 10 months to me would be an A.
Yes.
The worst case, it'd probably be 18 months, probably be 12.
Yes.
So I'd say that's like a C.
Okay. Right. Yes.
So I would like look at like a 9 as an A, 10 to 11 as a B, and then 12 as a C. And you know what you got to think about, Rachel, is how am I going to use this time to make sure I land with my dignity intact and opportunities to recalibrate and rebuild my life. And to the extent that you use your time wisely in there, you can come back strong.
Absolutely. And, even today, the day after sentencing, re-reviewing my release plan, getting information on, now that I know the appointment and where I'm going to be, the opportunities that I will have available to me, knowing and, networking with people who have been there and recently come out and who are about to go in as I am, and knowing the demeanor of the different case managers within this facility, and just, prepping so that I can have the best possible outcome. And, I think I've shared with you before, I've been in healthcare my entire life. So I've always been a caregiver, and this has given me a different view towards wanting to help with advocacy and trying to help people not make the same mistakes that I have made, or guide them post mistake. So
you're going to have an opportunity right now when you go in there that you'll never have again.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, this is the only time. I shouldn't say that. Maybe, become financially successful or marry or something. But during this time, you'll have total time to work on Rachel. So you could spend time writing the next chapter of your life. You can architect or engineer a business plan. You can teach other people. You can get in great physical shape. You can look at this as an opportunity to do some things that you really, because when you're home, right, you've got a lot of things to do. You got to earn a living. You've got to pay rent. You got to pay a mortgage. You've got to figure out a lot of things that you're not going to have to think about while you're in prison. So you have opportunities to read, to educate yourself, to do all kinds of things that will hopefully advance you for the next chapter of your life. And that's what I always encourage people to do, is to figure out, you're in an environment that is pretty good at saying no and creating obstructions. You're going to be around a lot of negativity, a lot of people who will, say, oh, this isn't fair. And it's not fair, but you got to succeed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mindset to get through that, because you're going to meet a lot of resistance from staff and a lot of negativity from other people. But if you've got a strong mindset, you get through this. And that's what I always encourage people to do. That release plan are only going to be words on a page unless you know how to use it and you engineer it.
Absolutely. Complete agreement. Thank you.
And you're always, when do you surrender, Rachel?
Quoted from the judge, on or around March 29th.
Okay, well, I guess that's going to depend on the DOP giving you a designation. Where do you live?
Yeah, yes, I live in Texas, so I'm Western District. The appointment that is being recommended is Bryan Federal Prison Camp.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm feeling very optimistic. I think that it's just some insight and kind of repeating what you said, is that as a mom and as a business owner for so many years, and as a natural caregiver, You're absolutely right. Like, I do feel that this time is finally going to be one of inflection to get back to who I am, to get back and find the things that were once important to me and reset. And so I'm feeling very confident in the rehabilitation that I have to provide for myself. I'm confident that I'm going to do that work to make me even better, and so I feel like my life has had many seasons, and this is just another season, another chapter to make the end better. And so, as crazy as it might sound, I'm looking forward to this time. I'm looking forward to reflecting on the mistakes that I made and figuring out why I made those mistakes, because it didn't just happen accidentally. And so, I'm at peace. Sentencing for me was peaceful because the unknowns and the weights have been lifted.
And the outcome is awesome. So I'm very
Yes.
happy for you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Mark, Nikita, and Helen. If I can respond to any questions that you may have, I'm happy to do so.
Yes. Hi, Michael. This is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. Talking about Matt.
Is that Dr. Ollinger?
Oh, well, I go under a different alias with this SteamYard thing. You got to go StreamYard. I'm sorry.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is our new platform that we could offer completely for free.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about that nobody has to pay anything, and we'll still be here every day. And try to help as many as we can. What's going on, Doc?
Anyway, with Matt, we finally got the visitation papers approved. So assuming that there is no cancellation of visitation, we're going to have essentially an opportunity for a 4-day weekend long visit span coming up here starting on Saturday. So that's encouraging. And so the other thing that Matt was inquiring about, apparently there's a bit of buzz or at least some interest there at Coleman about the Second Chance Act. Is that really anything that he ought to pursue to give maybe more halfway house time or some kind of earlier release if Second Chance Act paperwork?
Well, the Second Chance Act was actually passed in 2009 by President Bush, the second President Bush. And what the Second Chance Act does is it allows people to have up to a year in a residential reentry center. So he already qualifies for that. The question, I think, was his sentence, what was his sentence length again? Would you remind me?
Yes, it was 12 months and a day. And he was sentenced on November 16th and surrendered on January 11th.
So January 11th is when the time begins.
Mm-hmm.
And my guess is the best case for him is going to be somewhere around July.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. July would be an A, late July. August, September would be a B.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. I think he's out by August.
Okay.
But I would say July it'd be better because of all the stuff that he did. I think it'll be July.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I think it could be August. Worst case, it'd be September, I think. But that's not going to apply to him. And there's two big laws. We've discussed these before, the Second Chance Act and the First Step Act.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there is a policy change on this federal work release program, I do not know of any mechanism that will allow them to let him go home before then.
Okay. So there's not a big advantage to at least filing the paperwork or getting that in
Well,
the
there's no
pipeline?
paperwork to file.
Okay,
The Second Chance Act simply gives the Bureau of Prisons the authority. Prior to 2009, I think when it passed, they didn't have the authority to grant that much halfway house time. Now they can give, because of the Second Chance Act, and the First Step Act actually made it better.
Mm-hmm.
So better than the Second Chance Act is the First Step Act, which passed in 2018, but didn't really get implemented until early 23. So he's already that's the reason he's going to get out in about 6 to 7 months is the First Step Act. The Second Chance Act, it won't apply to him. He's not, in theory, he could come home today because he's within a year of his release date. He could go to a halfway house today.
Right.
Bureau of Prisons has the discretion, but they're not going to do it until there's a better policy in place.
Mhm. And so it'd be just continue to work on his release plan and become
He's got to execute his release plan.
right.
He's got to do what he said he was going to do,
Mhm.
and do everything else that staff tell him to do, and read the room. He's got to use all of the skills he developed to become an exceptional sales professional in that environment, and figure out, okay, I can see what I have to do. As Stephen Covey says, I've got to seek first to understand, then to be understood. You know, I've got to really understand this environment. And once I understand this environment, I think one of the things that I would learn is it's best to just be deferential and not even ask for anything until he's done at least 4 months.
Mhm.
Because otherwise he's got to differentiate himself from everybody else that's in that system. The one thing he has in common with everybody wants to get out.
Right.
And you've got to always be thinking about the adversary and how am I going to influence that person?
So true. Okay. Well, it's great advice. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that.
I always appreciate seeing you.
Oh, likewise. Thank you.
Is
Back to
there
the group.
another question here, either Helen or Nikita, or anybody
Actually, Michael,
else?
I got one for you if you don't mind. I've got a rare question
Of course,
for you.
Scotty. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. This is based on picking your battles. Okay, so keep that in mind. So my existing parole officer is fantastic. He's given me a lot of leeway, been very patient, totally cool guy. And his boss was my original parole officer. And so she's been receiving my newsletter from day one. Have a good relationship with her. She told me at the very beginning, you know, kind of in a laughing tone, like, if you ever need anything, give me a call. So I learned yesterday that I got switched to a different parole officer who is, let's just say, incredibly strict. And I've already seen the fruits of that in just one day. Dramatic. And so I guess I'm kind of asking myself, should I call this supervisor who I have some relationship? She was the original parole officer. She got promoted. So now she's a supervisor who's read all my newsletters, have this kind of nice relationship with, and just inquire if it's possible I can stay with my old one, or is that someone that maybe I don't want to pull that card just now?
Well, I mean, I don't think, you know, there's anything wrong with calling somebody who invited you to call if you needed anything. But what is it that's making it hard with the current probation officer? What's making it hard?
The stipulations on what I'm going to have to do reporting wise and record keeping and all sorts of stuff that I learned from the previous one. He wasn't going to make me do any of that. And he, you know,
could you describe what is it they're asking you to do?
Well, now I'm set up in that system that they track all your charges, you have to report all your records, all this stuff. My medical is being relooked at. I'm having to re-interview with a bunch of different people. I'm having to kind of start the process over. And again, it's not the end of the world. That's what you have to deal with sometimes. But I just, I don't know. It's the indications I've got from my RDAP people and from the old parole officer, so to speak, is saying, wow, you're in for it. Not in a bad way, just it's going to be a whole different experience.
Well, I think that you've got really good guidance right now. When you hear what kind of person you're dealing with, you're in a position of strength because you know what you have to do. And that means you've got to be scrupulously strict in memorializing everything that you're doing. And you have to make sure that you read very closely both the conditions of release and also the special conditions if you have any, because the type of probation officer that you are describing is the type of probation officer that doesn't necessarily want people to succeed. They want to demonstrate they are a superpower and can put people in prison for technical violations. And there is a danger in that. And so I think you've got to be scrupulously strict and anticipate. Well, you know the story of, I forgot his name, the young fellow that ate the bagel and he's back in prison right now. Okay.
Absolutely.
You want to know about things like that. You want to know about, you want to be very cautious about things like credit, even using a credit card. Okay. I've given some examples before of people whom I've known who have gone back to prison because they used credit without permission of the probation officer. So if on your conditions of special supervised release, it says not allowed to use credit without permission of the probation officer, that will include a credit card.
Yeah, I got that. I don't have any of those conditions, so that's why I was.
Do you have conditions on jurisdiction, on where you can travel?
Yes.
Okay, so you're in the Eastern District, right?
Yeah.
Of California?
Yep.
Just be sure you stay in the Eastern District unless you have permission.
Absolutely. Will do.
I mean, I've known people to come back to prison for that, for getting into the Southern District or the Western or the Northern District.
Nothing surprises me at this point. I get it.
Yeah.
I will keep it buttoned up. I just was,
I would expect that. And then I think, Scotty, that you've got a gift in making people like you and trust you and know you. And I think that that's going to work in your favor with this probation officer as well.
We'll give it a shot.
It's just
you're going
to have to.
Yeah, no, I'll get it. I'll make it happen. We'll figure it out. Thank you, sir.
You bet, my friend. Anybody else, or if not, I see some things on the text chat. The First Step Act was reauthorized in 2018 for fiscal 18. Has anything related to credits or early release changed since there does not appear to be any subsequent reauthorizations? Hi, one Nestle. It's not a authorization. It's just a law that Congress passed and President Trump signed. And it took several years for the Bureau of Prisons to put it into effect, to get policy statement, to get the risk assessments done as Congress demanded. And then COVID slowed it out. It started to really roll out in 2023. January of 23. And it's pretty much implemented right now. But there's nothing new in the First Step Act. The things that we're trying to change are policies within the Bureau of Prisons that it already has the authority to change. Because
can I clarify a little bit?
Sure.
So I have read it, and the text of the reauthorization bill does say.
What are you saying? The reauthorization bill?
Well, it was originally introduced, and it was reauthorized and refunded in 2018.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, I will clip that and send that to you in an email or something. But yeah, the funding, absolutely, the grants for First Step Act, elderly care, and those associated things within that program were only funded through 2013.
You're mistaken. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll give you the history on that. The only reason we have the First Step Act is because Jared Kushner's dad was in prison, and he advocated for change. His father-in-law became the president. We've got a lot of history on that. We were very active in advocating for that for many years, and for this kind of legislation. And then I will just tell you, it was luck that President Trump got into office and his son-in-law had a dad who went to federal prison. And there was nothing in 2013. I was in prison in 2013. And I tell you, there was no First Step Act in 2013. Maybe you're talking about the Second Chance Act.
No, I'm certain it's First Step. Wasn't that reauthorized in 2018?
It was passed and signed in 2018. It was not reauthorized. It did not exist in 2016. Let me put it to you that way.
In 18 or in 08. I thought it started in 08.
You're thinking of the Second Chance Act. And that act is the one that has those kinds of funding for other things. And there's always a problem for funding. But, sometimes I think it's super important to recognize I've got to focus on what's important to me. And things like grants and Congress and what it does, those are beyond the purview of what you can do. You got to focus. Anybody going into prison's got to focus on, okay, I know the policies here. And you can read the Code of Federal Regulations. I've got all types of links to that on our site. And I actually have the First Step Act on the site. But there's always a challenge. Congress can say one thing, the president can sign one bill, but you've got a bureaucracy with 40,000 employees that might move in a completely different direction. And you've got to become a master of navigating that labyrinth and know which battles you're going to fight. I would only fight the battles that are going to get me out of prison and get my liberty back.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to be fighting the battle. You just don't win anything.
Yeah. So I'm bringing this up because my loved one's case manager told her that those programs ended in 2013 or 2023 when the funding ended. And I didn't believe that to be true, but I did go and do the research. And in fact, you may be corrected. Maybe it's second chance if elderly care falls under second chance and not first step. But it had to do with the elderly care. And I believe he's mistaken, but absolutely said,
Take a look at it, young man. Take a look at it. But you could read the First Step Act. I've got links to it right on the program. It's not very long. It's like 60 pages or something. And I would recommend that you read. I would also recommend you read the Code of Federal Regulations, because that's what governs the Bureau of Prisons. And the more you know about the system, the stronger you become at being able to refute when you get information from case managers, which can frequently happen, that is inaccurate. And you've got to be strong enough in the policies and in the system to know. I mean, I had to prevail. I've prevailed on that numerous times while I was in prison. But you got to know it, because they're bureaucrats. And just think of the Department of Motor Vehicles times 100. Helen, I just wanted to ask if you have a question.
Yeah, quick question. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Okay. I'm in California. My case is out of Nebraska. I'm getting sentenced next week. My lawyer says this judge doesn't allow for self-surrender. I'm flying out on Tuesday, and my lawyer is being unresponsive. What do I bring? What can I bring? What can't I bring? What's going to happen to my personal property?
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that you're facing this challenge of potentially having to fly to a different state and then go into custody. If you go into custody, you can't bring anything with you, because they're going to take you in. They're going to remand you right there in the courtroom, and you will not be able to bring. You're not going to the Bureau of Prisons at that point. You're going to what's called the detention center, and they will then you'll spend probably 30 to 45 days in the detention center while they designate you. If you're from California, you'll probably be going to Dublin, or which is in Northern Cal, or Victorville in like Riverside area. That's my guess. Those are the two women's prisons here. Do you have a preference?
No preference. I'm in Southern California, so maybe.
So Riverside is closer to you then?
But they don't have a camp, right? Do they have
yeah,
a
there's
camp?
only you'll only go to a women's camp. And that's a complex, so they have everything, but they have a women's camp there. There's a women's camp in Victorville. There's a women's camp in Dublin, California.
Do I bring money with me? Can I bring money with me or no?
You could, but you could. Do you have family support?
Yeah, but it might take a while for it to come through.
Well, they could use Western Union.
Okay.
Well,
right.
I shouldn't say that, because you're going to a detention center in Nebraska, and I don't think they have a federal detention center there. I think your best bet is going to be to bring a couple of $100 with you, and once you get there, that they would very likely put that on your books, which is like an in-house bank account, and you could use that to make phone calls. And if they have video visiting or anything like that, I don't know where you're going, but it's always good to have money. So yeah, I would bring a few $100 with you. Are you going to have a big fine?
There were drug charges. I don't think there's any restitution or any fines that I know of. Do you know what the max is? Like 500?
There's no max, but if you're going to have a fine, they're going to take it from you if you bring a lot. 500 is fine.
To bring? Okay.
Yeah. 500 is fine. Okay. I'm really sorry to hear you're going through this. One thing, when your family, I would recommend that you spend a lot of time on our websites, where there's a lot of free information to kind of help you prepare. The more you know, the better off you're going to be when you get in there.
Right.
Good luck to you, Helen.
Right, thank you.
Nikita, are you having questions, or are you going to let me get off?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Michael.
I'm here for you, Nikita. If you are, don't. I will stay till anybody has a question, but otherwise I'm going to head out.
Yeah, I'm good. I appreciate you.
All right, brother. Appreciate you. Everybody be well, and thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so that you get notified in case we have a snafu with our emails going out. Thank you, Barry. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Michael.